let me know that you can hear me, Eleanor. But I'm Megan, Hipstitch Academy, and I go live once a week to do a lunchtime live stream where I teach free projects that I find online. There's no shortage of them these days. Like I said, Deer Doe, it's a French pattern company, I think, and they have this great project for a t-shirt, and that's what I'm going to make for you. I also just want to say that I do teach classes. You can take an actual class where we get together on Zoom and make great clothing projects. Most of the classes we teach are clothing projects, and I do a beginner sewing series called Learn to Sew Lab. It's a 4-week class if you're a complete beginner, and those we log on together. You work on your project, I show you how to do it. Today it's more of I'm going to sew, and you can follow along or you can make it later, because I always post the video after the video recording. So let's get started. I'm going to put my little overhead camera on. We've got the instruction manual here, and I am going to go quickly through cutting it because I just think that that is a part of what we do. So if I back this up a little, what I've done is laid the fabric onto the knit, and you'll see that it's doubled. The greatest stretch is right to left. So I've placed it on like that. This is the sleeve piece. It's doubled because obviously we need 2 sleeves, and I'm using scissors to cut because it's easier on the videos to do that. Normally I would probably use a rotary cutter for this thin knit, but I'm just using scissors today because it's easier with the camera up above. So obviously you're going to want to look at the instructions and determine what size you are based on your measurements. That's how you figure out what size to make. And then after you print the pattern, you tape it together and get the 3 main pieces. That was the sleeve. This is the front, and you can see this front is doubled, but more importantly, the fold of the fabric is there. So this isn't going to be 2 separate pieces. This is going to be one piece that is twice as wide. So again, I'm not cutting here because I'm keeping the fold intact, because when you take it off, it's twice as wide, because this is basically half of the t-shirt front. Pattern comes off, and you've got the full t-shirt front. This being the fold of the fabric. And last of the big pieces is the back. Pretty much same deal. Front was a little bit bigger because most women are a little bigger in the front. This is the back. Same thing, we're keeping the fold here intact so that we have the full back piece. And check out what the instructions have in store for us. Okay. Got lots of versions. I think there's a 3/4, a short sleeve, a long sleeve, 3 different versions, and step 1 is very clearly marked with this beautiful picture, putting the front and back together, right sides facing. So I've got my back here. I'll have that right side up. And we're gonna line up these shoulder seams here. So then I'm gonna take the front and put it right side down. So you can see it has a nice scoop neck, and it's a really comfy, loose fitting t-shirt too, which I think will be nice. So you can clip or pin the shoulders together. I've got pins, and actually I've got my little clips handy too, so I can show you. So that's pinning it. There's really no better way to do it. It's kind of what you're used to. However, when your knits are real thin and sort of fiddly, sometimes pins will fall out. So clips can be nice. I don't know. I tend to just kind of go for whatever's close by. I'll over clip here. There we go. So either way, you want to get those shoulder seams to line up. So we're going to head over to the sewing machine camera. See if we can get that going. There we go. And when you're sewing a knit, if your machine has a knit setting, definitely make sure. So I'm on stretch light, and I'm going to go for a really narrow zigzag. And on my machine, I know that stitch 2 is good for that. You don't want to use a straight stitch because your stitches will break the minute anything is stretched out. I'm low on bobbin. I have been sewing all morning, finishing up a project, and I thought, oh good, I don't have to change my thread because I have blue on. I'm not even thinking about that I'm going to have to, I'm going to run out of bobbin, but that's okay. We're done. Oh yeah. Not much of a warning there. Let's see, what do I have those clothes? I'll just use, actually I'll use this gray. For this, that will be perfect. Pays to have some bobbins wound. Okay, let's go back here. I think it stopped before I got to the end. You can obviously also do the serger if you have a serger. I am not going to serge my edges for today's project, which is fine. I will probably, however, since I took about a 5/8 inch seam allowance here, I will probably cut some of the extra seam allowance to even it out when I trim all my threads. So keep that in mind. You can do that too. Now with knits, if it feels like you're having a hard time getting started, just start in a little bit. Like if you don't want to start right at the beginning and get it moving, start in a little bit, sew across, and because it's a really small zigzag, I'm not back stitching. With knits and with real thin knits, I tend to not back stitch. I just make my stitch small enough that is okay. And then if you've started in, you can flip your project and sew off the other side. So that's a really good trick. And cut threads. Okay. So now we'll go back to our overhead. Yeah, this is gonna be a nice loose fitting t-shirt. Okay, next, where did my instructions go? Here they are. Okay, next thing they want us to do is work on the neckline. So we have this beautiful scoop neckline, and we have a piece here called the neckline. It's also a cut on the fold, so I actually just cut it out before, so that's why it's twice as wide. It's actually not very even, huh? I cut it and I think it was partly rolled, so that's a good way to check. Fold it in half, and I can carefully even that out. Boom. Okay, first thing they want us to do is put right sides together and sew the short sides. Okay, so this side here. And then it says to press the seam allowance open. I'm probably not going to press it, I'll probably just fold it. And then I just want to check what the next one is. I think it's going to be folding it. Oh, there it is. Fold it in half lengthwise with wrong sides together and then press. Okay, so, oops. So that, just along that short side. While I'm on it, while it's on the machine, I'll clip that. And then I'll bring it back a little bit. You can see I'm opening up my seam allowance like that, and then I'm going to put wrong sides together. Okay, and then I'm going to clip it all the way around. I'm going to go back to my table and do that, because I have all my clips here. Okay, so you want to take your time with this step, because especially when you're working with a knit that's rolling like crazy, take your time, unroll it, match up the edges, and then clip, like I'm doing here. And the clips are really nice to stop the rolling. So this is going to be the neckline that's going to go in our scoop neck on our t-shirt. And we're gonna go all the way around. So you know what, I lied. I am gonna serge this. I'm going to serge it because I find that it really evens it out. And even if you don't have a serger, I just want you to see, this is one of the things that I think is really handy with a serger. So basically, I'm going to go all the way around where those clips are, because the serger will cut off any uneven edges, and I know, like, right at the seam allowance it's definitely a little bit uneven. So I'm going to see if I can get my camera to go onto the serger. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, so this is just a really inexpensive Brother serger. I really like this machine, but it does take some getting used to. So you kind of, I just start sewing without anything under there, and then I get onto the actual fabric. And the serger is a good thing to use the clips with, because you can't cut the clips. The serger can cut through pins, and then it will really dull the knife with the serger. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, don't even worry. My mouth is off. So it's just rolling my edge, which is not what I wanted. So now I turn my knife on, and then you can see it's starting to cut off the edge of the neckband. And I like that it's doing that because it's evening out the width of it. So I'm keeping an eye here to have this edge of the neckband along the silver part, and then that's how I know the width is staying the same. So I'm going to cut a little bit. There we go. And when we come to the end of where we're serging, just kind of sew the loops off and cut it. Okay. And then we'll go to the overhead camera, because we've got to put it onto the scoop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use pins and mark the 4 points of my neckband, and then I'm going to mark the 4 points of the scoop neck. So there's the front and the back, and then I'll line the front and the back to get the left and the right. 1 and 2. Okay. So in here, if you put the shoulder seams together, you can find pretty quickly where the front and the back are. So here's the front. Shoulder seams are still lined up, and then there's the back. Okay, now our shoulder seams are not the left and the right, so we want to line up our front and back pins and figure out where the side, the equidistant side point over here is right here. equidistant side point over here is marked with a pin like this. And I think I will take this opportunity to trim my shoulder seam. So I've got a whole bunch of threads and my giant seam allowance. I can run it through the serger, but like I said, with knits you can just cut seam allowances short because they do not fray. Okay, I'll get back to the neck here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 points. We want the back seam, or the seam for the neck, to be in the back. And my t-shirt is inside out, so this is the right side. And I'm gonna line up the raw edge, or the serged edge, with the right side of the t-shirt. And I'm gonna pin every of these 4 points. I'm gonna mark those and pin them. Actually, I'm gonna clip them. So the first thing you wanna do is mark it with the pin, but then where that pin is, that's where I'm gonna put a clip, because the clip is going to hold better. Actually, the clip does not have to be right on the spot since we already lined up the spot. So I can clip, clip. Front lined up, take the pins out, stick a clip. Oh, you know what I'm doing? I'm doing it on the wrong. Oops. It's gotta go inside. Right sides together. Did that just get twisted? Sure did. Oh boy. We still lined up? I think we're still lined up. If this one seems very off, I'll fix it, but I think for the most part I'm still lined up. Matching right sides together. My pins go together. And I'm going to stick a clip. I'm not going to put any more clips in because because I'm going to stretch the neckband as I sew it. So let me show you what I mean by that. Doesn't really matter where you start, but I'm going to start in the back. And I'm going to lay it on. And I'm just going to sew a little bit without stretching. And then I'm going to put my needle down. And that's really important because what I'm about to do is stretch out the t-shirt part so that it lines up and it stays flat with the neckband. And you kind of have to keep it stretched. Keep it stretched while you sew. Basically, I'm going to sew to where my thumb is. And I'm pulling just gently from behind so everything moves forward. my needle is in the fabric. Now, I'm going to get the next section ready so I can remove this clip and stretch the neck of the shirt to match the neckband. Everything's flat. I'm going to pull a little from behind. Just make sure you're always catching the fabric underneath. I'm going to stop there. Remove that. Get the next section stretched out. And even though we're stretching it, it'll bounce back. I want to stick. Sometimes if I have a big section, I can stick one more clip in there to make sure everything stays lined up. This clip, so I think I'll just take that off, hold it right where it was. Stop there with the needle in the fabric, and then I've got one section left. So stretch gently. Pull from behind gently. And I'm back to where I started. Snip my thread. Stick those threads, and then let's take a look here and see how it looks. Why it is inside out. So see how it kind of brings it in. Oh yeah, it brings it in pretty well. And some people might top stitch it. I think for now I'm just going to leave it. Because I like the way that looks. I think I would press it a little bit just so it stays in the direction I want it to. I want it to lay flat. But I don't hate the way it's kind of puckering the shirt. I kind of like that, almost like it's creating some gathers. Okay, so if you're following along in the instructions, I am on to step 3, and we're going to do the sleeves. So the sleeves, like I said, have that cute little patch on the elbow. So we're going to do that. So I'll put that aside and grab the sleeve. I've kept the pattern close by because it shows you exactly where you have to put the little patch, because we want to make sure it lines up right on our elbow. I know you needed me to point out my elbow for you. Alright, so I haven't cut out the patches yet. I just decided to do mine in this gray sweatshirt material because I had a small piece of it and I thought that would look nice as a contrast to my blue and gray stripes. So I doubled it because I need two, because I have 2 sleeves and 2 elbows. Got my 2 patches. I'll unpin that, and currently I am right side up. So I'm going to do the first one. I'm just going to kind of like fold that up, and you can kind of see roughly if you've got it lined up. I think I have it pretty good lined up here. So remember, I have 2 sleeves, so I'm just going into the layer under the 1 layer of sleeve, and I'm going to pin. You kind of have to pin for this because there's no real way to clip it with the clips. Okay, so there's one patch. The other sleeve, I have to, now you have to make sure that you're doing mirror images. So on this one, it's going to be on the opposite side. I think that's right, yeah. So it's harder to see, but I can see my dashed line, so same thing. Just gonna fold it up and place the patch so that it lines up on the opposite side of the other sleeve. Anytime you're doing sleeves or pant legs, you always have to keep in mind you want to be creating mirror images of your left arm to your right arm, or your left leg to your right leg, okay? So that's why I've switched. All right, so now that we've got these on, it is suggesting a straight stitch around the edge. So I'm going to use the straight stitch on my machine that is signified by 2 stitches. So it's still a stretch stitch. On mine it's stitch 3. So basically it's going to be doing 2 stitches ahead and a 1 stitch back. And this stitch will build in some stretch, but it will look straight. It won't look like a zigzag. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger though. To where you started. And bring your needle up so you can take it off. There we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my other one. pins at. And back to where I started. Alright, so let's take a look at these. Cute. Love how this knit is fraying. That is not usually the case with knit, but let's see if I can get most of it to come off. Give it a little haircut. I didn't like this sweatshirt fabric. I remember ordering it, and I think I made a hoodie out of it or something, and it just isn't great fabric, but for patches I think it's okay. So there's one, and here's the other. We've got one of each. Just have to make sure when I sew it into the shirt, they are mirror images of each other, like I said. Okay, so now is the time to sew it into the shirt. So I did not sew the sides of my shirt, and that's going to make it easier to sew these sleeves in. So let's think about this. I've got the neck hole in front of me. I have the place where the sleeve is going to go in, and this is the front of the shirt. So I want to make sure that is not going to be correct. Oops, you can't see what I'm talking about. I've got my elbow patch. This one will wind up with an elbow patch on the front of my arm. So I'm going to grab the other one and make sure that is the one I'm putting in, because this is the front of my shirt, this is the back of my shirt, this is the back of my arm. So this has to go like that. Okay. So now, I think I'm not even going to mark the middle, I'm just going to flip. So the right sides are together, and I'm going to start with the beginning. I'll put a clip in the beginning. And then a clip at the end. Over here, and then kind of meet in the middle. Let's see, how's that gonna work? That's pretty good. Okay, so as you kind of start to go, the curve begins to line up. Make sure your edges are right up against each other, and clip every time you get it lined up. Like I'll start over here, get this, and you're not stretching either of the fabrics. The sleeve should fit into this t-shirt sleeve hole without either of the fabrics having to stretch at all. It should just lay flat. Let's see if that's going to be the case. Not really. Got a little bit of extra on my shirt. So I'm going to continue to clip one on the left, one on the right, and sort of meet in the middle, and then see just how much extra sleeve I have. It's not really that much. Okay, so then you know what I'm going to do that one out. I'm going to take this one out. And I'm going to stretch my shirt a little bit to make it, I'll take this one out too. Get that in the middle. So what I'm doing is just called easing. And since it's knits, that usually will involve some stretching. Well, looks like it works. Same thing over here. Easing and stretching the one that is slightly bigger until it fits in. Beautiful. All right, and do the other side. Turn it around. So just double check. This is now my front. This is now my back. My sleeve has the elbow patch in the back. There's my sleeve hole. Bring it right sides together, starting at the end. Line it up. Clip. Maybe I'll do 2. Clip. And clip the other side. And you can see, I'll do like 1, 2 here. I don't want to get too far up because I'm going to have to do the same thing. So I got 4 on this side and I have 2 here. So let me add 2 more without doing any stretching. This is the fiddly part, and this is another reason these clips are great, because it's not going to move around. If you were pinning this, there would be a lot more movement. Okay, I'm going to kind of go for the middle. Get the middle together. Stretch the extra. Stick a clip. Stretch the extra. Okay. All together. And bring that close to my sewing machine so I can put them all in. Okay. Start at the beginning. Now, this is an instance where I am not going to start right at the very beginning. I'm going to slide it in a little bit so it doesn't get stuck. And I'm going to make sure I have my zigzag on. Start to sew. And I am going to stretch a tiny bit as I sew so everything lays flat. over, go back to where you started, and catch the end. So right here, I started about right here, and this part is not sewn because I didn't want it to get sucked into my sewing machine. So I go back and run that over and cut my threads. And now I'm going to take a look at it because I want to show you what that looks like before I do the other one. So here we have the sleeve. So now the sleeve, yay, the sleeve patch is on the back of the shirt, and all I have to do is sew up the side. Okay, so if I show you, the other one's still just clipped, but you can get the idea. The sleeve is what we just sewed, and now this whole side is going to get sewn, but I have it right sides together, so I'm going to flip and put it inside out. And I always want to match my seams first. I can open up those seams. Probably normally serge them, but I won't today because I just want to show you this. Actually, I think I'm not going to split them. I'm going to make one go to the left and one go to the right. Clip that together. And for this, it's not as, it lays pretty flat, so you don't have to do as many clips, and pins would be okay for this step because there's not as much tension in what you're putting together. So there, and then you work your way down the side of the shirt and clip. Side seam is clipped, and I will sew that now. I'm going to start at the bottom, it doesn't really matter. So there's the side, and again, you know, you can cut all your threads, and you can even cut the extra seam allowance. I will finish up the other side, but we've got about 4 minutes left. So I just want to show you for it's real simple. For the hem on the sleeve, if you want it to be shorter, you could cut some off, but you want about 1/2 inch to be folded in, and you're just going to sew around that in a zigzag, and then same goes for the bottom. I don't have both done, but you're basically going to, you can even out the bottom if it feels like it's all kind of bumpy and jagged. You could cut it to make it more even, or you could run the whole bottom through the serger, which is what I'm probably going to do, and then fold up 1/2 inch, or you could try it on if you need it to be shorter, cut it to the length that you want, but always leave yourself an extra 1/2 inch and then hem it all along the bottom. You do still need to use a stitch that will allow the fabric to stretch. So use a narrow zigzag stitch, or you can use that straight stretch stitch, the one that shows the double lines. And that is about it. Let me quickly, I'll go through and do the hem on the sleeve. You really don't even need to pin it, because if you take your free arm off, you can sort of adjust, make it straight, and put that onto the free arm and just sew in a big circle. Oh, there, sorry, the sleeve is on the free arm. You need to adjust anything you can as you go. Turn it right side out, take a look. I think. There we go. That's my back, not my front. There we go. Patches on the back. Yahoo! So I just need to finish that up, do everything the same on the left sleeve, and then don't forget to hem the bottom. And that is it for the Deer Doe t-shirt. I hope you enjoyed this live stream. We're ending right at 3 o'clock. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. I'm happy to answer anything about this project. And if you're watching this on the recording, don't hesitate to go over and check out my sewing class schedule on www